so we're gonna, so would someone, since I have the fun of taking notes, would someone like to work their way through the agenda? And I can certainly, let's see, link you to the agenda. I can put the agenda in the,
Sure, I'm looking at the agenda. I've got it.
would you do that, Virginia?
Sure.
Lead us through?
Yep.
Okay. And then we'll figure it out with if Andrew shows up, that'll be great.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so we're officially starting the meeting at 12:08, which is one of those things
Okay.
that I'm supposed to pay attention to. It's like there are rules to this.
Yeah.
All right.
So welcome everyone who might be here, including Oshin, to the Town of Richmond's Housing Committee meeting. Oh, there he is. There's the little one. How cute is that? Gonna need housing when he grows up. I mean, he needs it now. Are you adding to your house right now? Yeah. I drove by there.
Yeah.
Well, I drove by there.
Yeah.
I saw the stuff going on. Anyway, this is the Housing Committee meeting for Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. And we have a quorum of 3 members. So it does not look like we have any guests at the moment. So we can proceed with our agenda. Are there any revisions to the agenda that anyone would like to make?
Mairead wanted to come back and revisit a few things and in terms of our priorities. So I think on the agenda we are talking about here's my agenda.
Priorities, confirm priority
Yeah.
strategic plan items, that one?
Yeah.
Would it fit under there? Or other
yeah.
business or?
Yeah, just like the short-term rental question was one that she wanted, and then some of the other items that are actually on our strategic plan. I wrote the minutes last time, and I know we haven't approved them yet, as though we're really going to focus on the first 2 agenda items on our list. And I think Mairead has appropriately said, I can help with doing more, and that is exactly what this committee is about, is using your energy in the places you want them to. So yeah, can that wait for the priority item, Mairead?
Yep, we could do it there.
Okay, all right.
So
Okay.
Andrew is back. So Andrew, we are just looking at the agenda to see if there are any changes and are determining that there are no changes that cannot be encompassed by the existing agenda, unless you have any changes that you would like to make to the agenda.
I see no changes.
Okay, so let's proceed with the posted agenda. And we don't have any public, so there are no public comments. Okay, so it's over to you, Andrew.
If you have the agenda up,
If you want, or I mean,
I can put it in the link if that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm having some mass tech issues, so I'm able to be in. It looks like no video, and I'm having some sort of weird Microsoft issue. But I am going to be attending an upcoming water and sewer meeting, April 6th, as you see there. So that has not occurred yet, but we're going to try to do that quarterly, is what we discussed on our last call.
Can we go back on the agenda, because we didn't get around to approving the February minutes yet?
Yeah.
Apologize
Any
for that.
problems with the minutes? Does anyone have
No.
any concerns with the minutes? Okay, so if everybody is good with the minutes, there are no corrections or comments, we can accept those minutes into the record as written.
Yes.
So now we're going to general updates and discussion. So we're on number A, updates on the Water and Sewer Commission meeting, financing in other towns, and some prep for the Water and Sewer meeting on Monday, April 6th at 5:30 p.m., which, Andrew, you have just said you're going to, right?
Yes, correct. I have a tentative meeting set with the Essex Junction town manager, but that's not for about a week and a half, shortly before that water sewer meeting.
Okay. And what are you going to get from him, how they finance things or whatever?
Yeah, insight into their process around water and sewer, their commission. I'm going to start there versus going straight to the commission. I want the town manager's insight into the pros and cons of their approach. And then I have an email chain that I've started with the water sewer folks over there, that once I gather some more information from the town manager, I'll follow up with them as well. But just to learn about their expansion process, the pros and cons that they've learned over the years. They have a pretty, from what I'm able to understand so far, a different process than the Richmond Commission. So I'm just curious how they got there, if that goes all the way back in time to 50 years ago when they created it, or if there's been tweaks to it. And if there were tweaks, how do they achieve those? So that's my primary goal, is to learn how other districts may have revised their bylaws over the years to encourage the opportunity to tie into public infrastructure.
Cool.
Okay. And which town was that, Andrew? I slipped
Essex
past that.
Junction.
Okay. Thanks.
I have a couple calls out to other places, but none of them, I mean, they're not geographically close. I don't have nearly as good a relationship, so I'm starting in Essex because I have a strong relationship there. And then I'll gather some insight from them, see if they can direct me to any other partners that they think could be helpful in this scenario.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. And it looks like, Mairead, are you signed up to go to that meeting or not really?
I think I was offered the opportunity to go. I think I'll run into the same problem with an evening meeting that I was running into
Right.
with the housing committee. So, you know, to the extent there's like non-evening work to be done around that, I'm happy to lend a hand. But I think, yeah, if it's like an evening meeting, I don't know that I don't feel like I have the capacity to volunteer myself for that.
Yeah. Do you want to try to talk to any other towns? I mean, it sounds like Andrew is going after getting some information from other people, how they do this work. It would be like a cold call scratch from.
I mean, I sort of wondered, I felt like there was a little bit more just like research into our own ordinance that could be done. So to the extent that I should have an action item related to water and sewer before the next meeting, I think sort of having an understanding about that, which wouldn't require going and communicating with any other town, but maybe with just like sort of doing a deep dive into the policy and like the legislative history, so to speak. I started doing that at one point, just sort of tracking down the different statutes that it refers to. And then, yeah, getting a little bit better of an understanding of, you know, what is our perspective on how it can be changed, because I think we still haven't actually answered that question. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I lost that thread, but I don't think we have.
You're right.
And to me, it just seems like it's, you know, it's a legislative change the same way it was, you know, it was created legislatively, you know, in our town. And so it could be changed legislatively in our town.
Right.
And I don't think it's more complicated than that, but maybe it is.
Yeah, well, there's a whole history to why it was done that way that is probably would be informative, you know, about the relationship between the users, the customers, and the non-customers in the town of Richmond.
Right.
So, I mean, Essex and Essex Junction kind of solved their town and village problem by separating. Richmond solved its town and village problem by merging into the town, which means that the water and sewer village is now part of the town, which complicates it in a different direction. So anyway,
yeah,
there's a whole, I mean, somebody like Bard probably, or David Sanders are probably the people to get that history from.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Water and Sewer Commission members turn over rapidly enough, except for the ones from the select board who have been on the select board forever, like Bard and David Sander. They probably don't have that history. The current members from the public on the Water and Sewer Commission, those select board members, or maybe other people in the community would be able to.
Right. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's my understanding that I guess we want to sort of figure out two things. One is just what is the mechanism for changing it? And then the other one is how to effectuate that and get people's buy-in, right? So it's like the political question and then the actual like mechanical question.
Mm-hmm.
I think I Does that sound right? Or do we already know that it is just a simple legislative fix and it doesn't?
No, there's definitely a political buy-in question.
Right.
I mean,
Is there also does anyone here feel like they understand what the actual mechanism is for changing it? Or would it be helpful for me to actually research and identify that?
yeah, I mean, I feel like the change is actually can be made by the Water and Sewer Commission, but it's the political buy-in question.
Well, there's a voting process that's part
Yes.
of this as well, I believe.
Yeah, so the current users vote if
Right.
there's going to be any change to anything. So the political component of it is, will the vote pass? And that's the education component that we would run in a wall into because people just look at dollar bills. So
Right.
somebody would propose something at a commission meeting, I would anticipate, and they would move to meeting minutes. There'd be discussion and eventually a call for members to vote on something. There'd be something sent out to them, I'm sure, for proxy vote. And I don't know what the threshold though is. I don't know if it's 51%, 67%. That would be an important piece of information.
Right. Okay. So
Well,
it sounds like there might be enough vagueness in our understanding of like the mechanics.
Sure.
I
Yes.
mean, I don't have to, but if that would be value added,
Yeah, no, that
feels
would
like
be
a good project.
useful.
I think reading the law is great, and I think you're the perfect person to do it, Mairead, so thank you.
Sure.
Just to fill you in, and you probably got this from the minutes, but I'll say it out loud again anyway. If we were to find a developer interested in some development project that is contingent on expansion of the water sewer infrastructure, then we might have an opportunity to use CHIP funding, which would massively support and therefore diminish the burden on people who wind up paying for it. So right now that's just like a dream. It's not like a reality, but it's one of the things that's in the back of our minds about how to leverage available resources to make it possible for Richmond to expand in such a way that it could support more housing.
Yep.
All right.
The other
So-
thing that you could explain better, probably, Mairead, is the difference between extending the district and extending the lines, or expanding the district. Because like the situation with the gateway now is that the water and sewer district includes the gateway. People voted for that.
Right.
But the lines, the extension of the lines is something else again. So the legal ramifications of those two things would be good to have a succinct explanation for. You know, what does it mean? Do you have to expand the district to extend the lines? I believe you do. Do you, once you've expanded the district, does that mean anything exactly? You know,
in terms of like voter buy-in or et cetera, with regard to expanding the line, you mean?
Yeah, or anything legally. Does it, you know, allow you to do things legally? I looked the other day, I was in the town offices, the planning office, and the current zoning map does not have the extended district on it. So I said, Keith, shouldn't we have a map that because there's a line that says it's the water and sewer district. It doesn't say where the lines are, and it doesn't include the fact that the whole gateway on the one side of the gateway is in there and is not shown on the map. So
what did he have to say about that?
He said, oh, yeah, I guess we should change that. But, you know, it's been a while. It's been at least a year, maybe 2 years since the district was actually expanded up there.
2 years.
So, yeah, so I'm not sure why really that map isn't reflecting that. So anyway, he said he was going to work on that. He was going to put it on his list of things to do, is to make the map actually be correct, which in my mind
I would be
is a plus.
curious if, because the district is expanded, I know it's not a lot of potential users, but do those people have the ability to vote because they're part of the district, or do you have to be a user to vote? I don't know that answer.
Well, to extend the lines, to pay the money, see, it doesn't cost you anything to expand the district.
Right. What I'm saying is,
And the users have to vote to extend the lines.
Not the district?
More than that for expanding the district.
No, I'm saying now that they've expanded the district,
Yeah.
they added the gateway area.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there's 15 residents there. They're
Mm-hmm.
not users. In the
Right.
event there was a vote for something, do they have voting rights? For anything,
A
for any
vote.
vote?
Well, a vote, you mean to change the ordinance or something like
Yes.
that, not to
Yes.
extend the lines.
Correct.
You're talking about changing the ordinance.
Or do they have any, do they have any say in matters there? Or because they're not a user of the system, they might be in the district, but they don't have any quote unquote voting powers, for a lack of better terms?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. And they're
I'd be
not
curious.
even, if it's a matter that does not involve extending the lines, they're not even potential users, if you know what I mean. They're not even planned users. They
Yeah, but
could
let's
be
say there was
considered
a,
potential users, but yeah,
let's
so
say
we'd
there
have to
was a,
get that answered.
yeah, like if there was a proposal to go on a different road away from them, do they pay anything? Like if there's a bond that the district absorbs, is it only users that pay that? Do they get hit with a bill? Those types of small things would probably be helpful for us to understand.
Yeah, that would be good. So Mairead, you could get that information from them about the fact that we now have this district that has been voted yes to expand, but no to have any infrastructure extension. So anyway, yeah, good questions.
Mhm.
In your
So
spare
that's-
time.
Yes, I love it.
Naps, very different from a toddler. He naps many, many times a
Yes.
day. So
So far, but this will
far.
change.
he doesn't sleep at night, but he naps during the day. So
Oh dear. Yeah.
no,
Okay,
kidding.
very, very good.
No, there's definitely
Oh.
enough bandwidth for a couple of projects like this.
Okay, great.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, that certainly is one of the, um, productive things that we think we can work on as a committee. So thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Mairead, for doing that. Is there more on that, Andrew, on the Water Sewer Commission, or should we head off into the CHIP webinars as a topic?
Yeah, I didn't anticipate having a huge update at this meeting. It would be the following meeting.
Right. And
Perfect.
and likewise for me. I'm just trying to keep up with every, with the little pieces I'm pulling together. So the CHIP webinars happened in January. I attended, took lots of notes. We came up with a couple of questions, which resulted in me asking a person named Bonnie Waniger, who is on the who works for Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And I was just asking her a question that came up from the last meeting, which was about whether tier status was related to our ability to use CHIP. And she was a straightforward question, and she said no. There's no impact on the town's ability to use CHIP based on our tier status, so we don't have to worry about that. Andrew, you asked me, or you suggested that we find out if CHIP can be used for development in the flood zone. And I didn't understand enough about the basis of that question to turn it into a question for Bonnie. My thinking is that typically you don't want to build in a flood zone. You want to get people out of the flood zone. But were you thinking that we should be looking at the flood zone as a place to build, or just tell me more about what your thinking was? Because I put that one aside until I could talk to you. Are you hearing me, Andrew?
It's been cutting out a lot. Anybody else having that?
No.
I wonder if it's my internet connection. I'm having some massive tech issues. Sorry, can you repeat it?
Sure, I will. You might want to turn off your camera too. That might help you. Do you have thoughts about the relationship of CHIP funds and the flood zone area of Richmond?
I mean, the only reason I brought that up is I was just brainstorming of like where that might be an applicable application of CHIP. And it's like Pandora's box. I've never attended any of the meetings, and I have no idea what the back history is, but there's a big town building that's got some health hazards in it that costs a lot of money to repair. So that was just, oh my goodness, there's this money. Who can be involved in this? I know so little about it. So I don't have any insight into flood zones. That's why that was the main reason I posed that question last time, because it seems like it could be a win-win where maybe there's a way to navigate the town center without the town having to take on $10 million worth of debt.
Okay, it was in connection to the town center, which is in
Yeah.
a flood zone and has had flooding problems in the past. And a recent effort by I think it was the town center committee to try to convince the town to pass support of a bond or something like that that would allow a big project to take place to rehab the town zone. And would that be related to better housing? Because CHIP Act is about housing.
It would be a drastic rebranding of that building. That's why it could be just a waste of breath to talk about. But in my mind, it's very poorly used. It's extremely inefficient, just walking through the building itself. So hypothetically, you could put, depending upon what Richmond allows for building height, hypothetically, you could put 45 apartments up there with 2 levels of commercial. The town could have a 30-year lease for $1 from the developer. They get some sort of tax incentive through CHIP. Now the town doesn't own a building. Somebody else might own it. The town has free rent for a long period of time to plan ahead. And there's a bunch of housing units that were created and other commercial spot for the post office and maybe shared office space and whatever would make sense from a commercial standpoint there. So it'd be mixed use, and it would convert that building, just my pie in the sky vision right here, into multi-use housing and commercial. But again, it's in a flood zone, so I have no clue if that's even reasonable.
Now I get it. Thank you. I missed the whole piece of that picture, and now it makes sense to me. Um, Virginia, you were also wondering about flood zone applicability. Is this like a question that you think we could send back to Bonnie?
Well, it's certainly a different question than the one that you had proposed to ask her, which is
Yes, yes.
about using this money to build in the floodplain. And, I said that the Planning Commission would never approve
Right.
anything
Right.
that's building in the floodplain. Well, this building is already in the floodplain, and it's technically can be made suitable for the floodplain if the renovations are done. That you have to let the water in and the water out, and there are all these different ways that you can make buildings pre-existing in the floodplain more suitable to allow them to remain. So this is a different question from can you use CHIP to build in the floodplain. So I guess
it would be, can you use CHIP to redevelop would be the right question, probably.
Yeah, can you redevelop, whether there's any appetite for putting apartments in the town center building? That's another question, that's the political part of the question. But whether the CHIP money can be used to redevelop, as Andrew says, this building into including some housing is the question that you could figure out how to ask.
I will ask Bonnie. That is a much better understanding. Sorry, Andrew, I had completely lost that part of the message. But so I'm glad to do that. And what a terrific idea for people to debate. Which do we care for? Are using the town building for a town center or using it for housing?
Or both. I'm saying both.
Or both. Yeah, right. And using it for housing. When I think of the debate about sidewalks in front of the cemetery, I can just imagine. But I think it's worth asking. I'm like good with it. I like turning over rocks and finding out what's underneath, literally. So
Connie, really, there's a way to pose the question. They're at a dead end. Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be a reasonable outcome that people are going to agree to. So I think a lot of that often boils down to money. $10 million bond, that's a lot for a small town like Richmond to take on. So this would be private-public partnership with CHIP funds that create cost savings for Richmond through reduced rents, increased grand list. In an idyllic world, in a utopian world, it's perfect.
I get it. I get it. I'm not going to work on the marketing aspects of it yet. I'll just ask Bonnie if this is even possible, and she would be glad to answer that question for us.
I think the current zoning would allow us to do that. So
cool.
That's a good step.
Well, my bet is that the answer will, from the CHIP perspective, will be yes. But let me find out. Let me ask Bonnie to find out. We've got a wonderful person who's going to help us do that. Virginia, I think I sent you the links to those webinars. Did you try any of them out to see if they worked? Okay, well then just
Sorry.
put them in you.
I haven't got there yet. Yeah.
Just know that some of those seminar sessions were really infomercials for consultants. So feel free to like jump ahead and find the things, find the shots that you're actually curious about, because you can, and a lot of them were examples in like Ohio or Indiana and stuff like that. And it's like, well, it's nice that they were able to do that. The cool one was St. Albans. That was the best one. That was in the last one. As an example, there was a town manager that is super entrepreneurial. Might be a good one for Andrew or Mairead to talk to, because this person is like bound on making St. Albans a revived community and has done an amazing amount of work in the footprint that St. Albans has mostly filled with empty warehouses and manufacturing plants, which Richmond doesn't have.
Right.
But he learned a lot about the law. And he said that he'd be glad to meet with any group of people in Vermont who are trying to move forward on CHIP, because he did a lot of this work under TIF. So just as and Andrew, if you like that contact information, you don't have to listen to the survey. I think I've got it in my notes. So if you'd like to talk to St. Albans, I can send that your way.
Yeah, sure. Feel free.
Okay.
Did you send me those directly in the email, or did you put them in the folder?
I think
which I still can't get into, by the way, but I have to talk to Duncan about that.
I sent them by email, and would you like me to resend them so they're more recent?
Sure, you could resend them, and I will make an attempt to put them in a place where I can find them again.
Okay.
So that would be great.
Okay. So let me get that question out there to Bonnie, and send Andrew the St. Albans contact and Virginia the seminar links. Mairead, do you want any of this?
I don't need any of it unless there's something that I could do that would be helpful. I'm sort of keeping in mind the things that we haven't discussed yet that I mentioned to you.
Let's get to that. That's all I had on CHIP. That sounds like that's good for now. I suggest we keep this on the agenda, just like the water sewer stuff, and keep moving. That okay with you, Andrew?
Yep.
All right.
So Planning Commission update. So there are two things that we're working on. One is the new stormwater regulations. This was what we and the Planning and Zoning Department deemed to be the most crucial thing for us to work on. We don't have stormwater regulations, and we already are having issues with the fact that we are, with greater density of housing in particular, removing the pervious surface into which rainwater was always assumed to be absorbed, and that would take care of the problem. This was the origin of 1 acre zoning, is if you got an acre, you can have enough room for a septic system, a well, a house, and a way to absorb the rainwater. So we have heavier rainwater, we have more of it. So we've been working on stormwater regulations. So from a housing perspective, this is probably going to add costs to building housing. It's certainly going to require developers to look at some things that they've never been required to look at before, and to make a site plan that has things on it that they've never been asked to think about before in terms of stormwater. So we are trying to come up with the persuasive argument that I noticed was mentioned in, persuasive engagement, never mind. With a persuasive argument about why we need stormwater regulations, and we are making these stormwater regulations. They will be for new construction. They aren't even going to solve our current problems that we have with the more dense housing that we've allowed. So that's what we're doing right now. And I can just keep you updated on where we are. Obviously, it's a big process. We've not done this before. We've not had stormwater regulations. We've been looking at other towns, most of which have stormwater regulations. So we're trying to craft something that, is not too elaborate, is fairly simple, but deals both with the construction part, which is the erosion and sedimentation problem, the methods that you have to use, the techniques to keep during the time the land is disturbed during construction. You have to keep the water and the eroded soil on the property. So that's a whole one set of regulations. And then the second part of that is the stormwater after the project is completed. What are the ways that the stormwater is going to be controlled? It cannot be allowed just to run off and run into the street and contribute to flooding and et cetera. So that's what we're doing.
Can you elaborate on that? Are you referring to section 650.2? The RSR section 650.2, there are no definitions provided for drainage, drainage system, or drainage facilities to give insight beyond the requirement to design drainage facilities to accommodate existing and anticipated runoff to a 25-year storm standard.
Are you talking about the subdivision regs?
Yes, I'm running into massive stormwater issues and nobody can give me a straight answer
Right.
on just to subdivide a parcel.
Yeah. Well, that's part of our problem, is that there's no standards. There's no, the subdivision
Infrastructure.
regs and the zoning regulations, which we were not able to combine into land use regulations in 2012, which was tried, but so both the subdivision regs and the zoning regulations need to be addressed. And there are no definitions about anything. There are no standards about anything. It says things should be considered, which is meaningless kind of language, Okay, we considered that, check. So all of that is going to be addressed in our new regulations, both the subdivision and the zoning regulations. One of the places that we're at right now is getting the highway department to tell us what the actual system is that exists. It's hard actually, if you're going to allow people to tie into an existing system, what is the existing system? Planning Commission has no idea, so we're going to, get that information from the highway department that we assume has maps and things like that. And then we're going to definitely talk about the definitions and, the references that we're going to be using. The low risk development handbook is one of them. I don't know if you've looked at that, Andrew, for your project, but a lot of the erosion and sedimentation issues are discussed in this low risk handbook, which is about small scale development. And that's mostly what we're interested in, although, because larger scale development is addressed at the state level to a certain extent, although not well. Anyway.
It's anything over 1 acre of disturbed soil, the state has mandates on it.
Yeah, well, we have information that they actually don't do a very good job with their enforcement or their policies. So we're trying to allow our regulations to address that as well, but it's the small scale, anything less than 1 acre of disturbed soil, where there's even less anything, there's no requirements. And there are these few mentions. We have 8 places in our zoning and subdivision regulations where stormwater is kind of addressed, or erosion and sedimentation, those being 2 different things. But they're not addressed in any usable way. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to put something simple together. It's going to involve a lot of upfront planning. So when you have a site plan for your project, you're going to have to include a lot of things on the site plan that you didn't have to include before, like the slope, the soil types for small projects. So, yeah.
Are you guys working with any engineers to determine the rough cost of the burden that will be passed on to consumers?
Right. Well, no, we haven't got there yet, but it's in the plan because it's obviously going to be, there's going to be time, effort, and cost involved. And the question is, where's the compromise that makes it not impossible, but still, we don't want the problem either, because the problem will have public costs and also, litigation and other things. So it's definitely a challenge to make it complete enough so that it does something useful for you and still have it not be prohibitively expensive.
So one question I would have for the planning commission would be, an example would be, what does the town do? Because the town's installing a good amount of impervious surface on Browns Court. Are they doing anything whatsoever to control runoff from those lots?
Yeah, well, because we don't have any ordinance right now, we don't know that they're doing anything. Probably not. This is why we need to do this. And some people think that it rises to the top of our list of urgency because we have now made it possible to put in a lot more impervious surface. In the more densely populated areas, this is the goal of 181, right? And our smart growth forever policy is to have greater density. However, it does mean that you need to control the stormwater because you combine that with climate change and you have this problem. So anyway.
What I would anticipate, what I am faced with right now, based on the numbers we're seeing from our engineering fees and our attorney fees, we've already racked up to get in front of the DRB and the cost thereafter. Most likely, what will happen will be one of two things. No one will provide infill housing, or they'll take a lot like I have, and instead of doing 1 or 2 units, the only way the numbers will work will be to build 4 units, which are allowable per zoning. So the double-edged sword of people, there should be a balance struck, because I don't think the town wants to see fourplexes popping up in any infill opportunity. I think they'd probably prefer to see some single families and duplexes. We're looking at about $37,000 to $47,000 in infrastructure, engineering, and attorney fees just to subdivide a lot, to adhere to a 25-year plan. So that's real money that can't be financed. Like, that's something that comes up front from the bank. We can't roll that into loan options typically because of DTI limitations. So for me to build a single family home for $500,000, just the stormwater stuff is $40,000. So that's where if I were to apply that $40K over 4 units, it works. Over 1 or 2, it doesn't. So I do anticipate that's where the market will go if there's prohibitive, extremely prohibitive, because a 25-year plan involves massive excavation, installing not retention ponds, but you need retention tanks like they have in Burlington, all through their like City Hall Park. They excavated down about 25 feet, put in big giant barrels, rain gardens around it, and created the on-site kind of stormwater. It's like an on-site stormwater, and we're creating 0.05 acres of impervious surface, and our cost to absorb that stormwater runoff from 0.05 acres is about $40,000. It's frankly insane.
So what's the answer, though, Andrew? I mean,
investment by
we have to do something.
Yeah, I think that's where the whole Water Sewer Commission might have, like, other municipalities like St. Albans. I anticipate they are larger, but when they went through that process, they installed stormwater. A normal 25, any other municipality that has a 25-year plan, all that 25-year plan involves is a design of how to hook up to the current stormwater. There's no other municipality that has O'Leary and Burke is telling me that there's no municipality in the area that has a 25-year stormwater subdivision plan without actual town managed stormwater. So there might need to be a conversation about Richmond as a river community investing community wide in stormwater retention, not just the 7 people in the next 3 years that are going to try to subdivide. That would be my answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, Richmond could say that it has stormwater infrastructure because they do have a few
Can I tie into it?
pieces of stormwater. No, well, they have a system, but you don't have to happen to qualify because you're not in the right place. But anyway, so yeah, improving that would definitely come up. And, you know, whether this is going to turn into another one of those boondoggle issues that nobody wants to pay for, the town doesn't want to pay for, the developers, maybe the town would prefer to have everybody build 4 units instead of 1 or 2 units. I don't know. I mean, that's more housing. So you could look at it like that.
I don't know. The DRB and the public feedback in my recent DRB meeting would indicate no, they don't want 4 units.
Yeah, well, we know that much of the town doesn't want more housing, period. So that's one issue. But anyway, so our aim is to make some kind of compromise, and we will have to, you know, this is where we're starting. We've got a draft going, but we will have many, there will be many questions about it, including how much it's going to cost. And in my memo for our planning commission meeting, which is tomorrow night, I have said, this is a big deal. This is not a little deal. This is a big deal. And we, you know, there are a lot of things that we need to take into consideration. But anyway, I don't know whether Huntington, for instance, so Huntington has a stormwater regulation that's, you know, moderately complete. And I don't know that they have any stormwater infrastructure. So I don't know about your engineers, you know, O'Leary and Burke, if that's correct, if that works for Huntington, if they don't have any infrastructure.
They have a 25-year plan or a 10-year?
I don't know. I think
Yeah,
they just have a regular plan, which is an 8-year plan. You mean, not the town plan. You're talking about a
No,
something.
so storm, like a 10-year flood, a 10-year storm is what they define it as. So most municipalities have a 10-year storm for subdivision. Richmond has a 25-year storm plan. So for any subdivision that is completed, you have to have stormwater infrastructure in place for a 25-year storm. Every other municipality that has a 25-year storm regulation tied to it has stormwater infrastructure. So I wouldn't be surprised if Huntington has like a 10-year storm plan, which involves retention ponds, swales, you know, site management. It doesn't involve, you know, 10,000 gallon tanks,
cisterns and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, we have been talking about numbers everywhere from a 2-year to a 5-year to 10 to 25. Those are the numbers that we've talked about for in terms of the amount of rainwater. I mean, one thing that nobody knows is exactly what the storms, how frequent the storms are going to be. Those 300-year storms that we had in a 2-year period. You know, should we be thinking about that kind of thing? So anyway, yeah, I'll certainly, when we get a little further into this, I can run this.
Is this a public meeting tomorrow night?
Yeah, they're all public, our planning commission meetings. So yeah, definitely come bring up these issues. And, you know, we know we're going to need to work on the outreach to get any kind of buy-in, and the buy-in to what is going to be the question, obviously, if we're thinking, and Pete will have information, I mean, Keith will have some information from the highway department for tomorrow night, I think, too, as to what the town system consists of exactly. And so anyway, yeah, early days for it, but it's kind of taking up a lot of our efforts at the moment. So that's my report for the Planning Commission. Oh, the other thing that we're doing is we are working a little bit on the list of improvements that were put into the town plan and the community development section for improving the regulations. Some of them, you know, are tied in with what we're doing with stormwater, thinking about it there, talking about some of the other issues that are on that list, but all in a you know, initial kind of way. That's it. That's all I've got.
That was a lot. Thank you. That's great. Let's see. I'm Still keeping track of the time. We go until past. Is that right for everybody? We're all good for that? Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to type while I talk about something different. That's like so amazingly not a good idea.
So this is the
Does everybody?
priority strategic plan
Yeah.
items 1 and 2, looking at the Planic doc, and this is where Mairead is going to talk about her thinking about what's priority.
Right. So let me put the Excel spreadsheet for the planning doc in the link here. Oh, I just noticed your message, Mairead. Mairead put a Vermont Digger article into the chat, which is going to take a little while. I've got. Did you have a chance to read that, Mairead? Or
The Digger article, yeah, it was, I didn't know how related it was to Andrew's inquiry, but it looks like someone in Montpelier was suggesting that the CHIP Act actually be updated to account for basically
zones.
like building and flood zones essentially. So it sounds like it's related. I didn't know to sort
yeah,
of what extent. I think I added that before. So I think that may speak a little bit to what Andrew was inquiring, that it doesn't
yeah,
necessarily totally cover
right.
that
It
investment as
makes
written,
it
or at
look,
least that's one interpretation of it.
yeah, like the answer would be no from this. Doesn't reimburse. So let me find out more about it, and thank you for that. I'll keep track of that. I appreciate that, Mairead. Okay. The other link that I just put in there should take you, and tell me if you cannot see this or need a Microsoft something or other fix. But it should take you to a short spreadsheet that has 10 strategic planning items on it, which were organized by Mark originally in what he thought was a chronological order. That's how he kind of thought about it, is what would be a logical order, just to make it easy for us to talk about it, kind of his gift to us. Is everybody able to access that document? You're not, Maureen.
No, I'm out of SharePoint again. Is there a way that you could just share your screen?
Yeah, I can do that.
Because the version that I have from Mark that I saved to my computer has 12. It looks like, oh, actually, no, I lied. I'm sorry. There's just, it goes down to 12, but no,
I will
maybe I
share.
have the correct version.
Well, let's just stay all together and
Yeah, okay.
share while I figure out which button to push. All right. Does that, so are you all seeing a spreadsheet that has 1,000 things on it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So this is the chip idea. We spent some time talking about that and we're learning more about it. This number 2 is work with the Water and Sewer Commission to review and update the existing water and sewer bylaws. Okay, so those are well discussed. Now from 3 on down, we have several other items. And I think Mairead was interested in 2. Mairead, I think one of them was create a housing trust fund, which we said our first step would be create a plan for how to set up a fund. So first figure out how you would do it. And over here, Mark helpfully kept us alive with steps. You'd have to define it, present it, get some rules going, and seek legal support to do it. So that's kind of like a quick nutshell. The document that actually drives all this is our strategic housing plan recommendations, which is also in the Microsoft account, and provides a lot more detail. But sorry, that's a different project I'm working on. But this one gives like the high level summary. And Mairead, what was the other one? It was working with developers.
Yeah, it was the partner with housing organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, Champlain Housing Trust.
7 and 8.
To me, when I just look at, what our defined mission is as the housing committee, I think it uses language like ensure that protected classes of people are able to access housing in Richmond. And so to me, I just feel like the affordable housing piece, in addition to being something that I'm really, personally passionate about. I just think that the committee should keep engaged in some way. And I don't know that there's, I think it's just like continuing to have the conversation with these developers as the landscapes change pretty drastically, right? Like CHIP, for example, didn't exist 2 years ago. So like maybe the landscape is different now, in ways that would lead to like a different outcome in the conversation. And if nothing else, I just think sort of tracking that conversation so that it's, the public can sort of follow along, with the housing committee and with the town about like how we're engaging with the problem of, trying to keep housing affordable in Richmond.
Right. Part of that, and there's always history, part of number 8 is there was a project with Champlain Housing Trust Fund, I believe, that resulted in the Borden Street project,
Right.
for which there is bad feeling about, at least on the part of some town members who believe that Champlain Housing Trust owes Richmond a lot of money. That's my very basic summary and all that I understand about this. So the partnership is also going to be grounded in what actually is our relationship with some of these folks from the past, and how do we work? How would we work together to do these different action steps? So that's why it says look into that Borden Street
Right.
housing project. And then is there a campaign to run for finding land for habitat to use? So those were 2 ideas. Thanks. Given that, any further thoughts or discussion from Andrew or Virginia?
Well, Mairead, for your insight with regards to habitat, my real estate team has a non-exclusive relationship with their director of operations. And a realtor on my team, her name is Karen, works directly with Habitat to bring them opportunities. So she's sent at least 5 properties that they've purchased over the last few years that she assisted as their realtor. So there are mechanisms in place if somebody sees something or hears something. Habitat has a group of agents that they work with to navigate those opportunities when they come along.
Nice.
So it'd be good to poke them. Hey,
Yeah.
send stuff from Richmond. Let us know when you find something. Housing committee's here to help.
Yeah.
Do you have contact information for them, Andrew, that Mairead could use?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what I had shared with Connie in an email, I can just tell you both, is I was interested in, taking on potentially both of those, but one at a time, and just trying to chip away, in the name of the Richmond Housing Committee, and just sort of see where we get. But, so project number 1, would be like develop a plan for setting up a housing trust fund, and then, bringing it back to the committee, obviously, and then, trying to move it forward if we're all in agreement.
I think if that's where your energy is, then you could absolutely benefit from that. So item number 7 is one that you would like to actively work on, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Any other items on here anyone would like to discuss before we move on to short-term rentals?
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you had mentioned short-term rentals. Was that somebody else's interest? Mairead, was that your interest? No.
Mairead, yeah.
Yeah. As I said to Connie, obviously it's not part of the strategic plan, but I'm gonna mute.
Yep. Let me just read to you what Mairead had sent to me, since this is her words and might be useful. I know I have it here.
I can, I'll
Okay,
summarize.
you can say it? Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, I think that someone should be tracking short-term rentals in the community, basically. I think that, I obviously wasn't part of the conversation, but I think, even if the number is like 40 or 50 units in Richmond are being used by short-term rentals, I don't think that's insignificant for the number of units we have in the community. And I think even if nothing else comes out of it, like any kind of regulation, I think there's sort of enough history with long-term rentals really, short-term rentals really impacting the rental market across the country and across the world that, it would be worth at least investigating like some simple way of the town tracking this. I think doing nothing I think that is, I wouldn't agree with that.
Virginia shared with us last week, our last meeting, that the Planning Commission is not taking up any short-term housing regulations at this time. We did a cursory review online with another gentleman who's on some other Richmond committees that joined us on our call last week. And from a full-time resident standpoint, there's roughly 5 to 10 maximum actual Airbnbs. Nearly everything that you see available for rent on Airbnbs are constructed ADUs, or like there's 3 in my neighborhood where folks go to out of state and they rent their home for about 4 months. I wouldn't call that an Airbnb, frankly. I would call that an owner maximizing their cost of living here. So when we talked about it last call, if you do an Airbnb search for any date available, there's not 40 or 50 available in Richmond. And Bryce, who was the gentleman on our call, is very active in the real estate industry. There has been a lot of chatter about it, but there is nobody buying Airbnbs right now. The market's kind of collapsing. It's oversaturated and overpriced, and people are selling Airbnbs. I have 3 listings right now that are people backing out of Airbnbs that have no interest in maintaining them because their numbers are down.
Is there
Yeah.
just as a sort of a tracking out what Mairead said, is there a way to keep track of what's happening in the short-term rental market, or is it just talk to a rental agent?
It's costly. There's some third-party platforms that municipalities typically hire to navigate this data because it's extremely messy. AirDNA is the #1 go-to within the industry to identify how much volume's out there, what nightly rents are, what the market looks like. AirDNA is typically used by landlords to figure out nightly rental amounts, but it shows snapshots of entire markets. I know Burlington contracted third parties to review their inventory and determine how they were going to approach their regulations. It was about a 2-year look back, I think, is how they went about it. But I don't know how you would track it in Richmond to identify like true Airbnbs. You'd have to probably do something from a transfer tax perspective and then cross-check with available long-term rentals. You can also check short-term registries. The state does require short-term rentals to register. So if they are operating the way they're supposed to, which not everybody does, you could see a registration list of any Airbnbs registered. Full disclosure, my home is registered as an Airbnb and I've rented it once. So you'll find some excess data that's not quite accurate. That is probably what makes it the largest challenge is to determine accurate info. But if you look at what's available out there, like a good friend of mine lives on Jericho Road right in the town center, and he's got a garage that isn't suitable for habitation long-term, but it's a cute, like funky Airbnb with a spiral staircase to a platform upstairs. Like, sure, I guess he could rent it, but he would have to sell his home. Like, he manages to pay his mortgage because he has an ADU that he can maximize his rent on. Otherwise, he can't live in that residence and he's going to be a renter again. So that's that balancing act between regulation and stuff like that you put on actual homeowners versus somebody who's truly operating an LLC business that is pulling homes off the market.
Yeah. My thought was, it's part of our charter to track as the housing committee, like track housing and demographics. And I think this is part of, what we should do. I'm not even necessarily suggesting a regulation, but I do think you can't really understand the impact that some change in the market, for example, has unless and until you're tracking it. So I'm not suggesting it needs to be a particularly sophisticated system, but I do think having those numbers somewhere would be helpful. So I just didn't want to totally, yeah, I wanted to let you know that that's my perspective. I think that we shouldn't just like end the conversation.
How would we track it?
I haven't thought about that yet, but it was part of why I wanted to sort of keep it open. I think I don't know that we need to, I'm just going to mute right now.
Sure. Um, this is an evolving plan, and I'm just going to say that I'd like to add to this spreadsheet just as a convenient tool that I hope everybody soon gets access to and can also contribute to the idea that we should be tracking short-term rentals. And I'm not going to give it a number. I'm just going to put it on here so it's on our radar and not try to solve the problem right now. We can, I think staying aware is partly a function of, well, who has access to just the general traffic. And, I don't know why Bryce was invited to this meeting, but he declined it just earlier today. So I'm hoping that we get to see him in the future. But there might be other ways of keeping track of this, and we can talk about it again. Mairead, is that sufficient for now?
Yes, I just wanted to, those are things that I would have shared had I been present at the last meeting and that I had anticipated sharing when it was on the January agenda. So I just wanted to raise
Great.
it.
Thank you. And Andrew, thanks for summarizing last month's meeting because that was pretty comprehensive. I appreciate that. Anything else about us prioritizing our strategic plan items? Good enough for now? Seems like we are. Okay. Andrew, should we go ahead to recruitment?
Sure.
All right. Or just it's a ongoing problem. Right now, it was a select board issue last night of every year after they've been elected whoever was elected in the March town meeting, they say, okay, we need to work on recruiting people to fill other kinds of positions that aren't voted for. And Duncan works with Josh to try to figure out how to make that happen. So there's going to be an announcement in the near future of just a generic, here's the positions that are available. Please sign up to one that you think you might like. And I haven't heard anything. I was the last one that posted on Front Porch Forum about an actionable item. Here's what we're planning to work on. And I listed our 2 strategic planning items that we were, really focused on. And I haven't heard anything other than we had Bryce attend last time, which was great. So there are people who are curious and interested and show up at times. Andrew, do you happen to know if Bryce is still interested or is he kind of unengaging and I shouldn't keep sending him invitations to attend?
It wouldn't hurt to send him an invitation to attend, but I followed up with him after the meeting and I did not get the vibe that he was going to right now step forward. I think he was entering a busy time in the real estate market as well as with the Vermont Land Trust that he chairs. Maybe we'll get lucky and that'll settle down and come August, he'll circle back around. But I think right now he's probably swamped.
Okay. Fair enough. And glad he attended when he did. Obviously really welcome. Let's see. Is Karen Erickson the contact for Mairead? I'll put that in the minutes so you can find it easily, Mairead. I don't know if you've got hand stuff. Write that down. Can't hear you though, but
I just took a picture as well.
So. Oh, excellent. Okay, well, I'll keep working on that. Habitat. It's like I can do maybe 2 things at a time, but not 3. Any other ideas about recruitment?
No, Planning Commission's not having any luck either. We're considering trying to reduce our number to 5 so that we can have a quorum of 3 instead of 4. So
Oh,
What's
we're
the
already
current
there.
number?
what is the
Is there
present number?
currently 7?
7 is the present number, and we have 5, more or less. So anyway,
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle across all avenues. People are not engaged. I think that they don't see the return on their time, is what I've heard from people that I've chatted with. They feel like it's a waste of their energy.
Well, people
Yeah,
are engaged in a lot of stuff. Go ahead, Mary.
No, I was just gonna say, maybe, yeah. I've been, every time I see a neighbor or an acquaintance, I ask them if they want to join, and typically everyone's really busy with other engagements. But people like to be asked, so I keep asking. One thing is, I mean, maybe just being clear about, it's a monthly meeting. I mean, are we tied to 90 minutes every time? Like, is there some way that people can engage that doesn't require, 90 minutes every single month?
When we get to doing community outreach of any kind, so the persuasive argument for stormwater being a recent topic, that is when you need people to, whether it's show up or be willing to be part of a gathering that talks about this or something like that. There are definitely times when you need to have community members showing up and being part of that. And I will tell you that I now try to attend the select board meetings as an example more regularly. And the individual voice matters. It just does. So having, and stormwater from Southview would be a great neighborhood example of how people have worked to get the town to be as, from their perspective, as reasonable as possible about a regulation that is about protecting housing, but is also not going to, overly burden one small group of homeowners. So showing up is probably one of the best things people can do when it comes to community outrage. Outrage. I meant outreach. That was a Freudian slip, okay?
interesting. Yep.
But the certainly emotions are instructive as well. But I think then you have to be ready to do that. It's like, now make the call. This is what you need. Now make the call. And I'd be part of that effort myself. That's what I signed up for in the strategic plan. So I really support personal contact. That is the way people really think about, can I do this? Can I really do this now? With everything else I've got going on, and sometimes the answer turns out to be yes. So as these projects mature, they may come to a place, even in planning or designing or engaging or getting Vermont League of Cities and Towns or whatever, there may be people who are willing, not necessarily officially, but to come to these meetings and be helpful. So I think it's something to continue to think about, but I would pause on recruitment because the town's about to launch a recruitment effort. And I would say I'm still going to be making personal contacts and asking people to think about it. Virginia's already doing that for the Planning Commission, so the three of us could do that for housing. That's my thought.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, I think it's problematic for people that some of these issues are really difficult, and they don't actually just require you to come for 90 minutes once a month. I mean, if nobody does any of the work,
Well, I guess
then
that's sort of what I
nothing
was
will
thinking,
happen, I
is
mean, you
like,
really want people who are interested in this subject, who are interested enough to even read the materials before they come to the meetings. So
yeah.
that's one problem that we have, is that people want to sign up for 90 minutes every month
Yeah.
or whatever.
Well, and I was thinking like sometimes it's almost like, we spend this 90 minutes, which is, I like seeing everyone personally. And I think it's a good use of time, and it's nice to get to know the community a little bit better through this. And sometimes it's like 90 minutes is like 90 minutes. You could be doing some substantive work. So I just sort of threw that out there to say, like, are we totally wedded to a 90-minute every month? Or is it like, you
Not a
know,
requirement. We could
every
make,
other, like 90 minutes 1 month is going to be a virtual, everyone logs in and we say hello and we're doing our committee work remotely together, or something like that.
well, that could work, but another thought is shorten these to less. So in the beginning of the housing committee, Virginia, you had so much to teach us about what the heck the planning commission is and where this housing committee came from. And now we've built this repository of information that includes a strategic housing plan and a connection with the town plan. And we kind of have a lot of material that we've absorbed thanks to your consistent efforts to educate us. But we now have like a focus set of things that we can do. And it might not take us as long to chat about it, although knowing what happened at the Water Sewer Committee on April 6th, for example, I want to meet after April 6th so that not before it, so that we can, make sure we understand how can we help this move forward? What's the next step? So I think some meeting time is important, but I'd be okay, for example, with shortening this to a 1 hour meeting going forward and seeing if that works for us. And then there's an extra half an hour to do other important things, maybe committee work, maybe other, there's full plates for everybody. And I don't intend to work less for the housing committee, but do we need a full hour and a half? That was just where we started. There was no rule that said we had to meet for 90 minutes.
And the other thing that is, I think, discouraging for people, certainly in relation to the Planning Commission, is that some of these things are longer term. And the Housing Committee is kind of even worse than the Planning Commission because the goals are long term, like maybe 30 years or whatever. Some of them could be short, but people
that's
like
what
to
I'm
do
doing.
something, they like to
Yeah.
get something done. And to come and talk about something which is important, of course, but is not very satisfying sometimes to people unless they're actually interested in it. So I don't know. I constantly contemplate what the way to encourage people to be on these committees is.
Yeah. I just think if we want like people from my age group, I just think about, when I'm back to work, a once a month meeting during the lunch hour, like totally doable. But yeah, I think part of it is like making it doable.
Mhm.
And only sort of holding on to the vestiges that we need. And I agree that like we need to interface with one another. You don't have a committee unless you're like, talking with one another. But
Well, and in that light, the degree,
Sorry.
Virginia, that's good.
Um,
To the degree that we can do projects in modular pieces and say, here's a chunk, helps us as committee members. I don't know if it helps us with recruitment, but it certainly helps us process the material.
right.
And that's why creating steps for a project is like really helpful. Like, okay, here's the list, like we have for Housing Trust. Let's create a plan first.
Yeah.
And the other
Do
thing that does encourage people, and there have been many people who have joined the Planning Commission to meet people, so I'm agreeing with Mairead's thought that we need to keep having meetings where we all meet together, and maybe, you know, if that's why people join, that's fine. They're going to be there for a couple of years and learn something and contribute a perspective, and even if they're not super interested in the topics that are being talked about. So anyway.
yeah, yeah, more to think about there. And in light of the fact that we have 8 minutes left, and all good things to do, uh, under other business, well, Andrew, did you have more to say under recruitment? I didn't mean to like cut you off or stop or
Yeah,
anything.
I got nothing.
Okay. Do we want to change our meeting length and see how that works? I mean, here we are at almost an hour and a half, but there have been times way in the past when we were like going way beyond an hour and a half. So we're actually getting a little more organized. We could, as your friendly neighborhood clerk, I could do more perhaps to help keep the meetings tighter and keep them within an hour. And of course, everybody else seems to be part of that too. But shall we
I think it's
try
easy
for
with
now?
4 people. I think it's easy with 4 people now. If we had more
Yeah.
people on our committee, there'd be more opinions to share, and we'd never get through it in 60 minutes.
Yeah, well, then you need to have shorter agendas too. And
Yeah.
that's another way to think about it is if you modularize the work, then perhaps you can get through little pieces,
Yeah.
even with larger groups. But shall we
I felt
start
like,
with an hour? Go
yeah,
ahead,
just
Mark.
I felt like Mark was good at like helping us come back to
Yeah,
topic. I'm not saying
yeah.
that you also aren't good at that, but I think
I'm
yeah,
I'm good
it
at
takes
sidebars.
yeah.
I'm really good at sidebars. Okay.
It's
So are we in agreement? We don't think we have to vote on it, or just if someone doesn't agree, we don't have to do it, but we could try a 1 hour meeting in the future.
I'm fine with either 1 or 1.5. I think there are pros and cons of both,
Hmm.
but I could do either one. It's fine.
Okay.
I
Anybody
don't care.
else?
I don't care at all. No opinion either way.
I hear at least an inclination towards 1 hour meetings because I am in the middle of my workday and I would like to have a 1 hour meeting as well. So we're
Okay.
going to try 1 hour meetings as a trial. And can we think about when that next meeting would be? That would be 1 hour long.
I cannot do April 18 through April 27. I'll be traveling during spring break. I could propose Tuesday, April 14th at the same time, noon.
That would work for me.
work for me.
I'll be in Bethesda. So the 14th happens to be not a good day for me that
I
day.
can do any day that week except for the 15th.
How about
You
does noon
did you say
on
you
Thursday?
couldn't do the 28th, Andrew?
I could do the 28th as well. I get back on the 27th. So
28th
I can do
is
the 28th or any day of the week except for Wednesday, the 15th. So
I have
the 13th, 14, 16, 17, or the 28th of April.
any preference regarding those, Mairead?
Um, yeah, the 28th is great. And the week of the 13th, I would say the 16th is the only day that I don't have for various daycare closure reasons a lot on my plate. So the 16th or the 28th would be my preferences.
Virginia, 16th or 28th?
I could do either of those.
Can we do the 16th then? Because that keeps us a little more on our middle of the month schedule, and we'll do it from an hour from 12 to 1.
Okay.
Okay, Thursday. So that's a Thursday, April 16th. I have to write this down or it'll leave 12 to 1 by Zoom. And things we want to make sure we cover are the water sewer update from Andrew.
Yep.
And me.
And Mairead, yay, yes, that's right. You're doing work. And Virginia, will you have had a chance to look at the chip stuff by then, or should we talk about chip, or should we pause on that? And I'll just do the emails and get feedback from Bonnie. We have an hour meeting, so
Right.
it's nice to have like one topic we want to make sure we get through, and maybe a second one.
Oh, I'm okay with waiting on that one to give me
Okay.
more time to read this stuff. But
Okay. All right. And then, do you
you
want
could
to?
report on what Bonnie says. I mean,
Yeah. Okay. So I'll do that.
like the select board
Um,
has all these 5-minute items.
okay. So it'll be a brief update, and um, we do you need to do you advise doing a planning commission update, Virginia?
I doubt that there will be a lot new. We will have thrashed about this draft that we have out there, which, by the way, Andrew, if you want to look at it, it's on the Planning Commission for tomorrow night's meeting materials. If you want to look at what we've got so far. And your comments will certainly be welcome if you're actually there. But I doubt if there's going to be anything new and different there. It's going to be talking about these same things and trying to understand the parameters of the problem.
Okay, so nothing, so we won't do that.
Skip that.
Just a sidebar for Mairead and Andrew in terms of getting on the Microsoft account. I discovered the solution. My solution was that Keith had picked, and I have several emails, and he had picked one, turned out to be my Gmail address in my case. And I have to remember that I sign into Microsoft, even though I don't have a Microsoft account connected to Gmail. I have to use that account in order to get a message that says we're sending a code to that email address. And then I use that code and I can access the folder. So something Keith has done has linked you to a particular address. And I know Andrew has more than one address. So see if that piece of advice helps you, if you can find out what Keith has done to connect you to his Microsoft account, whatever it is, that's how you sign in, even if it's not an email address you typically use or even intended to use.
So my problem is that it has a phone number that is a landline. And the message says always that they need to text me a code. Of course, you can't text to the landline, and we can't figure out how to change that. Anyway, that's a whole other problem, and we'll work on that.
Yeah, I get an email, not a text.
Yeah,
but
they don't give me that option for some reason.
Interesting. All right. Well, anyway, good luck with that on top of everything else you all are doing. And I can continue to share screens and stuff like that. But
yeah, and send things by
eventually-
email. If you want, just send them by email, and we can.
Yep.
Put them
And if
on.
anybody needs anything, I can send you a external copy that won't stay updated, but we'll give you information. Okay. Good enough for now. I think we're at 1:30. We should adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second that. You bet. Bye-bye.
Yep. Nice to